Okay, this is system of polar notes. It says find all your values of theta for which the two graphs intersect for 0 to 2 pi. So you were giving r equals 1 and r equals 2 is sine theta. So to find where these two graphs intersect, I'm just going to set them equal to each other. So 1 equals 2 sine theta. Divide by 2, or 1/2, equals sine theta. And then theta equals arc sine of 1/2. Draw your triangle if you need to. You're looking for where sine is positive. Remember, we did all students take calculus, and sine is positive here and here. So you will have two triangles or two equations. So theta is equal to, that's going to be pi over 6 plus 2 pi n. This is kind of like what we did in class today. And you're going to have one in this this quadrant, that would be theta is equal to, that's going to be 5 pi over 6 plus 2 pi n. Okay, so to find the values that fall between 0 and 2 pi, you plug in values for n. So if I'm going to get pi over 6, I'm going to get 5 pi over 6. And that looks like it's going to be it. Okay, here's our system of equations. I'm going to go ahead and set them equal to each other. So 2 equals 2 minus 2 cosine of theta. I'm going to go ahead and subtract the 2, so I get 0 equals negative 2 cosine. And if you divide by negative 2, you still get 0 equals cosine theta. And move the cosine over, so you get theta equals arc cosine of 0 degrees. So now if I draw my quadrants, I get 1, 0, 0, 1, negative 1, 0, and 0, negative 1. So cosine is 0 here and here. So you can write your general solutions. So theta is equal to pi over 2 plus 2 pi n. So this is pi over 2, and you can say negative pi over 2, or you can go all the way around. I like to go ahead and say negative pi over 2. So I'm going to say negative pi over 2 plus 2 pi n. And so if you plug in values for n, your answers are going to be pi over 2, that's 3 pi over 2, and 7 pi over 2. Okay, for number 3, go ahead and set your equations equal to each other. So you have cosecant of theta equal to 2 sine theta. I would go ahead and let's put a 1 here. That will make it more clear. I'm going to divide by the 2, so I have 1/2 cosecant of theta equals to sine theta. We're going to divide by cosecant, so we have 1/2 equals to, when you divide by cosecant, that gives us sine squared theta. Now we need to take the square root on both sides. When you take the square root on both sides, this gives you a plus and a minus. 1 over square root of 2, and this is going to be sine theta. I'm going to go ahead and solve for theta, so theta is equal to the arc sine of plus and minus 1 over the square root of 2. Now when I set up my two triangles, I'm going to go ahead and do my positive triangle first. So when I say theta equals arc sine of my positive 1 over root 2, so this triangle, my positive triangles are going to be here. So this is 1 over root 2. This is going to give me pi over 4. And my other positive triangle is going to be right here. This is going to be 3 pi over 4. So my two general solutions are going to be theta equals pi over 4 plus 2 pi n, and theta equals 3 pi over 4 plus 2 pi n, and those are my general solutions. Then if I set up my negative angle, so theta equals arc sine of negative 1 over root 2. And I'm going to do my two negative angles, so where is sine negative, and sine is negative here. So this is negative 1 over root 2, and it's also negative here. So this is negative pi over 4. And you could also do the negative angle here, so this is negative 3 pi over 4. So my general solutions here would be negative pi over 4 plus 2 pi n, and theta equals negative 3 pi over 4 plus 2 pi n. So if you plug in values for n for both your positive and your negative, your answers are going to be pi over 4, 3 pi over 4, 5 pi over 4, and your last one would be 7 pi over 4. Okay, number 4, if I set these two equal to each other, so this is 3 sine theta equals root 3, let's see, this is cosine theta. I'm going to kind of do like I did before. I'm going to divide by root 3. So this is 3 over root 3 sine theta equals cosine theta. I'm going to unrationalize this because I don't have a triangle that is 3 over root 3. So this is 1 over root 3. And I'm going to divide by sine. So this is equal cosine theta over sine theta. Cosine over sine is cotangent. So this is 1 over root 3 equals cotangent. If you don't like cotangent, you can change this to say this is root 3 of tangent. These mean exactly the same thing. So if I do theta is equal to arctan of root 3, and I'm going to go ahead and draw my triangle. So arctan, or if you do cotangent, so it'd be root 3 over 1, and this is 2. So this is going to be, or I'm sorry, 30-degree triangle. So this is pi over 6. Remember, tangent has one general solution. So this is pi over 6 plus pi n. Remember, it's only pi, so that's my general solution. So my answers would be pi over 6 and 7 pi over 6. Okay. On 5. So 1 plus cosine, this one's going to be a little bit different. I am going to subtract 1, and that leaves me with 0. And I'm about to do something that y'all are going to question me on. Okay, I've always told you not to divide by a cosine or divide by sine or divide by any trig function because it gets rid of it. But this time, I am actually going to divide by cosine. And I'm not getting rid of it. I am changing it. It's changing into something else. Cosine over cosine is 1. Sine over cosine gives you a negative tangent. And before, I've always told you not to because y'all have divided and it's gotten rid of something. So when I change this, gives me theta equals arctan of a negative 1. So I've just rearranged it basically. Okay, so if you need to draw your triangle for this, and remember tangent only has one equation, and arctan of negative 1 is down here. So theta is equal to negative pi over 4 plus pi n. Remember, it's only 180 n. Plugging in values for n, and I got my answers to be 3 pi over 4 and 7 pi over 4. Okay, for number 6, it says find all the values for theta for which the polar graph goes through the pole. And our answers need to be 0 to 2 pi. Okay, if it goes through the pole, then we know that it's equal to 0. That r is equal to 0. So I'm going to go ahead and set this equation equal to 0. So 0 is equal to 1 plus 2 cosine of 3 theta. Move your 1 over, so negative 1 equals 2 cosine of 3 theta. Divide by 2, so we have negative 1/2 is equal to cosine of 3 theta. So if we move our cosine over, then we have 3 theta is equal to the arc cosine of 1/2. And that's negative 1/2. Okay, so now we can draw a triangle and figure out where we have arc cosine of negative 1/2. And that's going to be right here. So that's a 60-degree triangle. And that's going to be right here if we do all students take calculus. So it can't be in your first or your fourth quadrant, so we're going to have one in your second and your third quadrant. So if it's a 60-degree triangle, then that's going to be 2 pi over 3. So your general solutions are going to be 3 theta equals 2 pi over 3 plus 2 pi n, and 3 theta equals negative 2 pi over 3 plus 2 pi n. And I got that by drawing a triangle in your second and your third quadrant. They're both 60-degree triangles. If you divide by 3, theta is going to be 2 pi over 9 plus 2 pi over 3n. That's one general solution. And theta equals negative 2 pi over 9 plus 2 pi over 3n. Okay, so we want answers that fall between 0 and 2 pi, so fill in values for n. And it looks like we're going to have a bunch of these. 2 pi over 9 is one of them. 8 pi over 9. 14 pi over 9. So how about 4 pi over 9? 10 pi over 9. And the last one's going to be 16 pi over 9. All of these values fall between 0 and 2 pi. And on the last problem, again, same directions. Your pole is 0. So 0 equals 1 minus sine of 2 theta. So this would be negative 1 equals negative sine. And I can drop my negative since both are. So 2 theta equals arc sine of 1. So where is sine 1? And sine is 1 up here because this is 0, 1. So 2 theta is equal to pi over 2 plus 2 pi n. So I can go pi over 2, or I can go negative 3 pi over 2. So 2 theta equals negative 3 pi over 2, which is the same thing, I realize, plus 2 pi n. Solving, dividing by 2, so theta equals negative pi over 4 plus pi n, and theta equals negative 3 pi over 4 plus pi n. So now find common denominators in your pi n's and plug in values for n. So I got pi over 4 and 5 pi over 4. And those would fall between 0 and 2 pi. Okay, see you tomorrow in class.